So before we even dive into the topic or I say a word about myself, I would like to, acknowledge this moment which you took, to watch my video. I mean, you could have been doing anything else. You could have been writing some assignments, sleeping, but you chose to watch it. So together, you and me both will be focusing on the opportunities that lie ahead of us. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Samriddhi Keshkar and I am a 6th semester MBBS student. So let us begin, without any further delay. I'll endeavor to make you learn whatever is worth learning. So this is our today's topic, osteology of the upper limb, and in this video we'll be discussing the clavicle and the scapula. An 18-year-old male patient presents to the emergency, supporting his sagging upper limb with his opposite hand. He gives a history of falling onto his left side after losing his balance on a snowboarding jump. He suffered an isolated injury to his left shoulder girdle with radiographs demonstrating a displaced blank fracture. What fracture is it? We can clearly see it is fracture of this bone, but what bone is this? So we have 32 bones in the upper limb, right? A clavicle, a scapula, a humerus, radius ulna, 5 carpal bones, 5 metacarpal bones, and 14 phalanges. How? 3 for each finger and 2 for the thumb. So we have 32 bones on each side, and this clavicle and scapula, the bones of our today's topic, they form the pectoral girdle. And what does the pectoral girdle do? It connects the axial skeleton, this one, to the appendicular skeleton, this one. So it connects the trunk to the upper arm, right? And this clavicle is the only bony attachment between the trunk and the upper arm. So why is it called the clavicle? Clavicle in Latin means key. And what does a key do? It locks. So what does the clavicle lock? It locks the scapula to the humerus. It locks the scapula to the humerus, and that's why it is called as the clavicle. So it is a long bone. It has a slightly S-shaped curve. It is located horizontally on the anterior aspect of the body at the junction of the root of the neck and the trunk. It is located over here. So at the junction of the root of the neck and the trunk. It articulates medially with the sternum and the first rib cartilage, and laterally with the acromion process of the scapula. It is subcutaneous and hence it can be palpated throughout its entire extent. It is the only bony attachment between the trunk and the upper limb. Like I told you, this scapula, this is not attached directly to the this rib cage. It is not directly attached to any bone of the axial skeleton. So direct bony attachment of the trunk to the upper limb is done by this clavicle, right? This clavicle. Now the functions of the clavicle, it acts as a strut for holding the upper limb far from the trunk. When we abduct, there's something that we have which holds the upper limb to the trunk, and what is that? That is the clavicle. And so we can move freely. This allows free swing of the upper limb for various prehensile acts such as holding, catching, grabbing. It transmits forces from the upper limb to the axial skeleton. It provides an area for attachment of muscles, which almost all long bones do, right? So now the peculiarities, this is the most important slide. I mean the slide to be remembered. So it is the only long bone which lies horizontally. We know that, nothing new about it. Now it has no medullary cavity. Though Gray's Anatomy, it states that this bone also has a marrow cavity, a medullary cavity. But for us at undergraduate level, it has no medullary cavity. It is subcutaneous throughout its extent. It is the first bone to start ossifying between the 5th and the 6th week of intrauterine life, and the last bone, remember I told week and not month. So between the 5th and the 6th week of intrauterine life, and the last bone to complete its ossification at the age of 25 years. It is the only long bone which ossifies by 2 primary centers. Rest all the long bones, they have 1 primary center of ossification. It is the only long bone which ossifies in membrane except for its medial end. And it may be pierced through and through by a nerve. And what is that? Intermediate supraclavicular nerve. Now the parts of the bone. Like every other long bone, this clavicle also has 2 ends and a shaft. So an acromion or lateral end, sternal or medial end, and a shaft. Now, before proceeding any forwards, let's just clear this confusion of medial and lateral. So what is medial and what is lateral? You see, our body can be divided into planes, right? This plane over here is the coronal plane, and what does it do? It divides the body into an anterior half and a posterior half. This over here, this sagittal plane, it divides the body into a right half and left half. This transverse plane into an upper half and lower half. We are bothered right now, you have to consider the sagittal plane. We are bothered, right? How are we bothered? Because this sagittal plane, also called as the median plane, decides the medial and lateral of any organ. So this medial and lateral are actually relative terms. Okay, they are actually relative terms, that means with respect to each other. So this clavicle over here, it is placed over here, right? So this end you can see is closer to the sagittal plane, whereas this end is away with respect to this end. So with respect to the sternal end, the acromial end is away from the sagittal plane or the median plane, and that's why this is the lateral and this is the medial, right? Yes, so now let's proceed forward. Now that we have cleared our doubts, features and attachments. Lateral end. Let's describe the lateral end first. So how do we identify it? Oh, sorry, I just forgot. Just a minute. About the anatomical position. My God, how can I forget this, right? This is the most important slide. The most important slide. Why? Because this is the first question that the teachers will hit at you. I mean, they give you the bone and they ask you, hold the bone in anatomical position and determine its side. Now, if you can do that, they proceed with the questions. If you cannot do that, they simply hand you over some other bone or they ask you to walk away. That's why this is very important. So, the side of the clavicle can be determined by, we need 3 points to determine the side and the position of any bone. And what is that? Minimum 3 points are needed. We need to know either the medial or the lateral. We need to know either the anterior or the posterior. We need to know either the superior or inferior. And now if you notice properly, that's how all the books write it. First thing that they are telling is the side of the clavicle can be determined by holding the bone horizontally in such a way that its flattened end is on the lateral side and its enlarged quadrilateral end is on the medial side. We know we have to hold it horizontally. That is first thing which is understood. Now we have to keep this flattened side lateral and this quadrilateral cylindrical part medial. Now they are telling it is convex anteriorly in the medial 2/3 and concave anteriorly in the lateral 2/3. Now they are telling lastly that there's a longitudinal groove on the inferior aspect. So make sure whenever you're holding the bone, as the sooner you get the bone, the first thing that you do is place the flattened side, lateral to you. And this one, the medial side, or how do you identify it? It is quadrilateral in shape, it is cylindrical in shape to medially to you, right? Then the superior and inferior. Look for a groove. This groove should be placed inferiorly. This groove over here, this groove over here should be placed inferiorly, right? And then the superior and inferior have been decided. Now anterior, posterior, how do you decide that? You decide that by, this convex anteriorly, this one, this medial 2/3, and this is concave anteriorly. So this is the side and anatomical position, you determine that, right? Now let's proceed forward. Features. So features and attachments, let's describe the lateral end first. So it is flattened above downwards. There's an oval facet over here. Look over here, there's an oval facet, this one, an oval facet over here, right? This oval facet, on this end articulates with the facet on the medial margin of the acromion to form acromioclavicular joint. The lateral end provides attachment to the fibrous capsule of the acromioclavicular joint. So if I ask you, is facet mein kya joint hota hai? So it forms a joint. So that means what? You have only one attachment, the fibrous capsule of the acromioclavicular joint, right? So that is about the lateral end. And then the medial end. The enlarged medial end has a saddle-shaped articular surface. You can see it has a saddle-shaped articular surface. A saddle-shaped articular surface over here. It articulates with the clavicular notch of the manubrium sterni to form sternoclavicular joint. It provides attachment to Why did I tell you last time the fibrous capsule? Because over here we have 3 points and not just the fibrous capsule. So fibrous capsule of the sternoclavicular joint. Okay, understood, well and good. But also the articular disc and also the interclavicular ligament. So this particular, obviously ये बड़ा है तो इसमें ज़्यादा attachments तो होने ही थे, ठीक है? तो there are 3 attachments. What are they? The fibrous capsule, the articular disc and the interclavicular ligament. Now the shaft. The shaft of the clavicle is divided into 2 parts. As I've been talking from the very beginning, lateral 1/3, medial 2/3. Lateral 1/3, medial 2/3. The medial 2/3 of the shaft is convex forwards. The lateral 1/3 is concave forwards. We already know that. Now the lateral 1/3. Let's come to the brief description. What is happening? So lateral 1/3 of the shaft, it is flattened from above downwards. It has 2 surfaces. It has 2 surfaces, the superior, the inferior. The superior, the inferior. Right? Superior surface is subcutaneous between the attachments of deltoid anteriorly and trapezius posteriorly. Inferior surface presents a tubercle. Inferior surface presents a tubercle over here, right? And this tubercle is called as the conoid tubercle. Now there's a ridge. This ridge, it is anterior and lateral, anterolateral to this conoid tubercle. And what is that? That is called as the trapezoid ridge. The conoid tubercle is located on the inferior aspect near surface near the posterior border at the junction of lateral 1/3 and medial 3/4 of the clavicle. The trapezoid ridge extends forwards and laterally from the conoid tubercle. Like I told you, anterolaterally. Borders. The anterior border is concave forwards. The posterior border is convex forwards. The anterior border is concave. The posterior border is convex backwards. Now, the posterior border is concave, provides insertion to trapezius. I told you, right? The superior border is subcutaneous between the insertions of deltoid anteriorly and trapezius posteriorly. Now, the features and attachments, medial 2/3. It is cylindrical in shape and presents 4 surfaces. So, this has 4 surfaces. Over here, we had 2 surfaces, 2 borders. Here, we have 4 surfaces. Superior, inferior, anterior, posterior. Simple as that. Anterior surface is convex forwards and gives origin to the clavicular head of pectoralis major muscle. Posterior surface is concave backwards, opposite to the lateral 1/3 and gives origin to the sternohyoid muscle near its medial end. Lateral part of this surface forms anterior boundary of the cervico-axillary canal and is related to the following structures. What do I mean by that? So, this is the posterior, right? Medial 1/3 ka posterior surface, right? Lateral to this, lateral to the origin of this sternohyoid muscle over here, lateral to it, what do we have? We have, this part that I'm touching, it, forms the boundary of anterior boundary of the cervico-axillary canal. So there are some structures related to the bone over here. They are not attachments, they are the structures related. What are they? Trunks of the brachial plexus and third part of the subclavian artery. Superior surface, the clavicular head of the sternocleidomastoid muscle originates from the medial half of the superior surface, and inferior surface. Now, the inferior surface is very complicated. It has a lot of features. The first thing to recognize is this thing. What is this? Over here, there's a ligament which attaches. What ligament? Costoclavicular ligament attaches to an oval impression. This oval impression, costoclavicular ligament attaches to it, right? Now, just, lateral to it, we have a groove. What is that groove? The groove for the subclavius muscle, जिसकी हम इतनी देर से बात कर रहे हैं, using which we identified the inferior surface of the clavicle, right? So that groove will provide attachment to what? The subclavius muscle. And around the subclavius muscle, in this groove itself, we will have the attachment of the clavipectoral fascia. Nutrient foramen, as you can see, just lateral to this thing is the nutrient. I don't know how clearly it is visible, but over here, just lateral, to the fascia, to the subclavius groove, we'll find there's a hole, and this hole is the nutrient foramen of the clavicle, which is lateral, which is located at the lateral end of the subclavian groove. Now, the clinical aspect. The clavicle is the most commonly fractured bone in the body. It commonly fractures at the junction of its lateral 1/3 and medial 2/3 due to blows to the shoulder or indirect forces, usually as a result of strong impact on the hand or all the shoulder when a person falls on an outstretched hand or shoulder. Like if there's a blow over here, some impact, and if I fall like this, with my hand in this position, like this falls on the ground, so what would happen? The upper limb forces would be transmitted to the trunk obviously, but इस middle part पे आते आते ना, इस junction पे आते आते ना, where the clavicle is very thin, what would happen is the bone breaks. I mean, there's fracture, right? If the threshold is obviously, if you cross the threshold, the bone will break, right? Now, what happens? When fracture occurs, the lateral fragment is displaced downwards by the weight of the upper limb. The lateral fragment of my clavicle will fall downwards by the weight of the upper limb, right? So this will fall like this. Unable to support, because the trapezius would be, the trapezius, I told you where it is attached. It is attached to the lateral end only, posteriorly. Trapezius alone, and whole this big, all these muscles, the trapezius alone will not be able to hold the bone. So the lateral fragment is not only displaced downwards but also drawn medially by the shoulder adductors. And what are they? The teres major muscle. I mean, this is the major adductor. The medial fragment is slightly elevated by the sternocleidomastoid muscle, because obviously this will take the upper hand now, so this will pull. So this is how the limb will appear. Presentation. The characteristic clinical picture of the patient with fractured clavicle is that of a man or woman supporting his sagging upper limb with the opposite hand. Some congenital anomalies. Clavicular dysostosis. It is a clinical condition in which the medial and the lateral parts of the clavicle remain separate due to non-union of two primary centers of ossification. The medial and the lateral end of the clavicle, they remain separate क्योंकि primary centers of ossification की union नहीं होती है, as is very evident. Cleidocranial dysostosis. It is a clinical condition characterized by partial or complete absence of clavicle associated with defective ossification of the skull bones. This is just for theory purpose. Ossification, as I told you, is very important. The ossification of clavicle is membranocartilaginous. Whole of it ossifies in membrane except its medial end, which ossifies in cartilage. The clavicle begins to ossify before any other bone in the body. It ossifies by 4 ossification centers. I told you when? 5th and 6th week of intrauterine life, right? 2 primary centers for shaft and 2 secondary centers, 1 for each end. So very simple. And this secondary center at the acromial end is occasional, may or may not appear. Growing end of the clavicle. How do you identify the growing end? The sternal end of the clavicle is its growing end, because epiphysis at this end appears at the age of 19 to 20 years and unites with the shaft at the age of 25 years. So the last to unite will obviously be the growing end. So it is the last of all epiphysis in the body to fuse with the shaft, and that's why I mentioned it, and that's why we need to remember this. Let's begin with the scapula. Clavicle is called as the collarbone, beauty bone. What is the scapula called? We do not have a glorious name. It is called as shoulder blade. It is a large, flattened, triangular bone located on the upper part of the posterolateral aspect of the thorax. Thorax, posterolateral aspect. Postero and lateral, posterolateral aspect of the thorax against the second to the third rib. So we have been told it is large, flat, triangle, right? And it is located on the upper part. So ऊपर है, where laterally, posterolaterally, ऊपर है, पीछे है, lateral है, ठीक है? And against, now the level, the length is from the second to the 7th rib. Now comes the parts. Whenever you ask the parts of the clavicle, do not utter 3 angles, 3 borders. The teachers do not want to listen to that. They want to listen to simple answers. And how do you simplify it? You just have to say it has, ma'am, a body and it has 3 processes, and that's it. Let them ask you. Do not tell everything by your own self. So the scapula is highly mobile and consists of 4 parts. It has a body and it has 3 processes. And what are the processes? So we have this spinous process over here, this big one. This is the spine, right? This is the acromion. This one is the acromion. Okay, this hole was the spine. This hole was the spine. This is the acromion. And this over here, beak-like or bent finger-like, whatever you want to call it, this one over here is the coracoid process. Let's begin. अब हम लोग body proper की बात करते हैं. So the body is triangular, thin and transparent. How do you know it's thin and transparent? just angle it, एक किसी light के against देखो, what do you see? You will be able to see, you have to identify this. I cannot show it to you on the video. So you will see how it is transparent, how it is thin, and triangle तो देख के पता चल रहा है. It presents the following features. Now let's talk about the body proper. We are just talking about the body. Remember, I'll not be mentioning any of the processes. I won't mention the spinous process, the acromion process or the coronoid or the coracoid process. I'll be just talking about the body. So the body has two surfaces, costal and dorsal. It has two surfaces. It has three borders. And what are the borders? Lateral border, medial border, superior border. Now it has three angles: lateral angle, superior angle, and inferior angle. Right? Now comes the dorsal surface presents a shelf-like projection on its upper part called as the spinous process. I've already shown you that. The lateral angle is truncated to form an articular surface, the glenoid cavity over here, this one. The lateral angle is thickened. The lateral angle is thickened and is called as the head of the scapula. This one, head of the scapula, which is connected to the plate-like body. This plate-like body, obviously it's just a plate-like body, with an inconspicuous neck. We can hardly see it, right? So this over here, if this is the head and this is the body, this neck over here, it is so inconspicuous, I cannot even show you how, the way it is. This is the neck over here, this one is the neck over here. It is inconspicuous, you cannot see that. So that is it. Now the parts. So processes, like I told you, it has three processes: spinous process, shelf-like bony projection on the dorsal aspect of the body; acromion process, which projects forwards almost at right angles from the lateral end of the plate, this one, almost at right angles from the end of the spine. Coracoid process is like a bird's beak or a bent finger. The bent finger is an easier one, but a bird's beak. So this one is the coracoid process. It arises from the upper border of the head. Obviously, this is the head and this is the upper border, and it arises from there, this process, right? Bends sharply forwards, to project supero-anteriorly. Now this one, this is again, a very important slide because the teachers will ask you to do this. Now the side of the scapula can be determined by holding the scapula in such a way that the glenoid cavity faces laterally. So let me make my glenoid cavity face laterally. This is facing laterally. Yes, forwards and slightly upwards. So laterally, forwards and slightly upwards. I did that, slightly upwards at an angle of 45 degree from the coronal plane, as you can make out. Now the coracoid process is directed forwards. You can see that. Shelf-like spinous process is directed posteriorly. This one, obviously it is looking at me and not you, so it is looking posteriorly. Now features and attachments. The costal surface or the subscapular fossa. This one, subscapular fossa or the costal surface. It is concave and directed medially forwards. Concave and directed medially forwards. So I have a left scapula, remember that, okay? Medially forwards. It presents three longitudinal ridges. We can see 1, 2, 3. 3 longitudinal ridges. For what? I mean, ridge किसी तो काम के लिए होगा, to attach to the intramuscular tendons of the subscapularis muscle. So this subscapularis muscle, it occupies the medial 2/3 of this costal surface. So these ridges are formed by the intramuscular tendons of the suprascapularis, of the subscapularis muscle. Now it is a multi-pinnate muscle, arises from the medial 2/3 of the subscapular fossa. Costal surface except near the neck, where the subscapular bursa intervenes between the neck and the subscapular tendon, except near the neck. So it is not present near the neck. Okay, remember. The serratus anterior is inserted on the medial border and the inferior angle. Now this serratus anterior has 8 digitations, right? So first digitation, 3 digitation, and remaining 5 digitations. It has 8 digitations. First, right, 2, 3 and the remaining 5. That's it. Now the dorsal surface. The dorsal surface is convex and presents a shelf-like projection called as the spinous process. The spinous process divides the dorsal surface into supraspinous fossa and infraspinous fossa. The upper supraspinous fossa is small, we can see 1/3, and this one is 2/3, it's large. Spinoglenoid notch. Now look properly. This is the glenoid cavity, right? And this is the spine. So this notch between them, this notch between them, this is called as the, obviously very evident, spinoglenoid notch. Very well. spinoglenoid notch lies between the lateral border of the spinous process and the dorsal surface of the neck of the scapula. Through this notch, supraspinous fossa communicates. This is a communication between the supraspinous fossa and the infraspinous fossa. You can see, I can communicate. Right, so I can communicate like this. This one can communicate with this one. Right, now through this notch, supraspinous fossa communicates with the infraspinous fossa, and suprascapular nerve and vessels pass from the supraspinous fossa to the infraspinous fossa. Now the features and attachments. What are the features and attachments? Let's discuss them. The supraspinatus muscle arises from the medial 2/3 of the supraspinous fossa. So only the medial 2/3. Okay. Infraspinatus from the medial 2/3 of the infraspinous fossa. Teres minor muscle arises from the upper 2/3 of the dorsal surface of the lateral border. This thickened lateral border, upper 2/3 is for teres minor, and lower 1/3 is for teres major. And over here, a small slip of latissimus dorsi is also present. Now then the superior border. Now let's come to the borders. Superior border. Shortest border, obviously, because this one is long, and this one, the short guy, the shortest border, extends from the superior angle up till the lateral angle, right? The suprascapular notch, if you can see over here, we have a notch, right? So this notch is called as the suprascapular notch. And what happens, this suprascapular notch, it is converted into a ligament, because there's a ligament like this, placed over here. जैसे अगर ये है, so ऐसे एक ligament होती है इसके ऊपर like this. There's a ligament, a ligament like this. So this is converted into a foramen now, because we can see a hole. This is now converted into a foramen, right? You can see a hole, right? So that is the foramen basically. So suprascapular ligament converts the suprascapular notch into suprascapular foramen. A foramen बना है तो कुछ ना कुछ transmit होगा. The suprascapular nerves, right, the suprascapular nerve passes through the foramen, and above the foramen is the suprascapular artery, which passes above the foramen. Okay. Now the inferior belly of omohyoid arises from the superior border near the suprascapular notch. Obviously this is a very frequently asked question. As you describe the notch, they ask you what is the muscle which arises just near this notch. So that is the inferior belly of omohyoid. Inferior belly of omohyoid, right? I'll be showing you the diagrams, do not worry, I'll be showing you the atlas. Now the lateral border, let's describe it. Lateral border is the thickest border and extends from the inferior angle, this one, up till the glenoid cavity. Inferior angle to the glenoid cavity. This thickened one, this is the lateral border. The infraglenoid tubercle, you can see over here there's a tubercle. This one is the infraglenoid tubercle, is present at its upper end and just below the glenoid cavity, right? The long head of triceps muscle. What arises from this infraglenoid tubercle? The long head of triceps brachii. It is not intracapsular. Remember that. From the supraglenoid tubercle over here arises the biceps brachii, and which is inside the capsule of the shoulder joint. But this one, which is this also very frequently asked question, this triceps brachii, which arises from the infraglenoid tubercle, is it intracapsular or not? So the answer is no, it is not intracapsular. Biceps brachii, yes, it is intracapsular. Another question which they ask you is, there's a labrum, this glenoid cavity, on it we have a labrum called as the glenoidal labrum, and then we have the capsule. After the labrum we have the capsule, and both of them together they increase the depth of this. But they convert, this is hardly a cavity, right? This is just this is just the head of the scapula. So we have to convert it into a cavity so that the head of the humerus can articulate. So the labrum and the capsule, they serve the purpose of converting this one into a cavity, right, which has a depth. So very frequently asked whether this biceps brachii, long head of biceps brachii, which arises from the supraglenoid tubercle, whether it is intralabrum के अंदर है, inside the glenoidal labrum. The answer is no. It is intracapsular, but it is not within the labrum. Right. Now, medial border. Medial border, it extends from the superior angle to the inferior angle. It is thin and angled at the root of the spine. It is thin and it is angled at the root of the spine. We can make it out. It is thin and it is angled at this is the root of the spine. So it is a little angled at this place. The serratus anterior muscle is inserted on the costal surface. I have already told you. The levator scapulae muscle. Now this is very easy. Okay, just look over here. This is the spine. Opposite to the spine we have the rhomboideus minor. Below it, the rhomboideus major. And above it, over here, we have the, what do we have? We have the levator scapulae muscle. We have the levator scapulae muscle. So this is very frequently asked. Now, angles. Inferior angle, it lies opposite the 7th rib or in the 7th intercostal space. Superior angle is at the junction of superior and medial border and lies over the 2nd rib. Lateral angle, this one, it is truncated and bears a pear-shaped articular cavity called as the glenoid cavity. I've already told you which articulates with the head of the humerus to form glenohumeral joint. It is fibrocartilaginous rim. A fibrocartilaginous rim, I told you, the glenoid labrum, is attached to the margins of the glenoid cavity to deepen its concavity. The capsule of the shoulder joint is attached to the margins of the glenoid cavity proximal to the attachment of glenoid labrum. That also I told you. Long head of biceps brachii arises from the supraglenoid tubercle. This origin is intracapsular. This also I have told you. Now the spinous process. Again, something very easy. So this spinous process, surfaces. It has two surfaces and it has three borders. Okay? So two surfaces are the superior surface and the inferior surface. This is the superior surface. This is the inferior surface of the spine. Superior surface, inferior surface of the spine. Right? The superior surface, what would happen? Supraspinous fossa के साथ है. Supraspinatus muscle arise कर जाएगा. Infraspinous fossa से attached है. So infraspinous muscle arise कर जाएगा. Right? Borders. Very important. Anterior border of the spine is attached to the dorsal surface of the scapula. We can see the anterior border is attached to the dorsal surface of the scapula. Lateral border of the spine bounds the spinoglenoid notch through which passes the suprascapular artery and nerves, right, into the inferior fossa from the superior fossa. Posterior border of the spine is called as the crest of the spine. See, this one is the posterior border. It is called as the crest of the spine. Anterior border over here, posterior border over here. Okay? This posterior border is also called as the crest of the spine. It has two lips. You can see an upper lip and a lower lip. Upper lip receives the insertion of trapezius and lower lip receives the insertion of posterior fibers of deltoid. Spinous process is done. What else? Then we have the acromion process. Yes, this acromion process, it is almost at right angles from the lateral end and overhangs the glenoid cavity. This is a glenoid cavity, it overhangs it. We can see that, right? Its superior surface is subcutaneous. It has a tip. Okay? It has a tip. It has two borders, anterior border, posterior border. Am I able to show you that? Yes, yes. So anterior border and this one is the posterior border, right? Now, it has a tip, two borders, medial, lateral, two surfaces, superior and inferior. The medial and the lateral borders of the acromion continue with the upper and the lower lips of the crest of the spine of the scapula respectively. So, कोई और attachment नहीं है. This, this upper lip, this, with this lip, the upper lip of the crest, with this continues this medial border and this continues with the lateral border. So what would happen? This would again receive the attachment of deltoid and this would receive the insertion of the trapezius. Now its superior surface is rough and subcutaneous, that I've already told you. Its inferior surface is smooth and related to the subacromial bursa. Its medial border of the acromion provides insertion to the trapezius muscle. I've told you. Near the tip, the medial border presents a circular facet. This also I have told you, right? And this circular facet now what would this facet do? This will now join, articulate to the clavicle to form the acromioclavicular joint. The lateral border of the acromion gives origin to the intermediate fibers of the deltoid muscle. This also I've told you, this lateral border, it is just continuous with this, crest. You can see this lip of the crest, it is continuous. So it would, attach the intermediate fibers of the deltoid muscle. The coracoacromial ligament is attached to this tip. Now this ligament is between the coracoid process and the acromion process. That's why the coracoacromial ligament. Acromial angle is at the junction of the lateral border of acromion and the lateral border of the crest of the spine of the scapula. Features and attachments. Coracoid process is very important. It's very simple, I'll tell you. this is how, you have to picture it like this. So when you picture it like this, you will see it has a vertical part and it has a horizontal part. You can see it has a vertical part. It has a vertical part and it has a horizontal part. Okay, vertical and horizontal. This horizontal is very important, so far as the muscle attachments are considered. So remember, it has a tip. This medial part, it has a tip, right? A short head of biceps brachii and coracobrachialis, pectoralis minor, and 3 ligaments. So 3 muscles and 3 ligaments. Coracobrachialis is medial to short head of biceps brachii, right? And they arise from the tip. Remember that? Okay. Pectoralis minor is over here. Okay. Medially, like anterior border of the medial part. Posterior border of the medial part has, see, pectoralis minor muscle is inserted on the medial border of the upper surface. Short head of biceps brachii and coracobrachialis arise from its tip by a common tendon. And who is medial? Coracobrachialis is medial. This is also asked. Now the coracoacromial ligament is attached to its lateral border. Conoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament is attached to its knuckle. The trapezoid part of the coracoclavicular ligament is attached to a ridge on its superior aspect between the pectoralis minor muscle and the coracoacromial ligament. The coracohumeral ligament is attached to its root adjacent to its glenoid cavity. Ossification of the scapula is not as important, but you can just read through it in order to know it. Clinical aspect. This is also not very important, but just to put something I have given you, because it is mentioned in the book also, but it is not very frequently asked. So Sprengel's deformity, what is that? Scapula develops in the neck region during intrauterine life and then migrates downwards to its adult position. Failure of descent leads to the Sprengel's deformity of the scapula. In this condition, the scapula is hypoplastic, situated in the neck region. It may be connected to the cervical part of the vertebral column by a fibrous cartilaginous ring. Now the saddest part is, you cannot even try to bring the scapula back, because if because any attempts in doing so would injure the brachial plexus with catastrophic circumstances, with catastrophic results. So we do not want to do that. Now, the last thing, the answer. Mid-shaft clavicular fracture. When the clavicle fractures, the trapezius attached to the posterior border of the lateral 1/3 is unable to support the weight of the arm. As a result, the lateral fragment is not only depressed but also drawn medially by the shoulder adductors. I've already told you that teres major and pectoralis major. Consequently, the patient tends to provide support to the sagging upper limb with his opposite hand. Right? Yes. Now, what I need to show you is yes. Look over here. This is the clavicle and these are the attachments. Trapezius posteriorly, deltoid anteriorly, this is the medial half. Sternocleidomastoid muscle, superior surface, medial half. See this one? This is what? This is the pectoralis major muscle, right? These are the ligaments, costoclavicular ligament. This is the subclavius muscle. These are the costoclavicular ligaments. What are they? The trapezoid part, the ridge that I told you, and this is the conoid tubercle to which the conoid part is attached, right? And again, we can see part of deltoid showing over here. This over here is the sternoclavicular joint, and this is the interclavicular ligament. This also I can show you, right? And then comes the scapula. See over here. This is the subscapularis muscle. This is the serratus anterior with its 8 digitations. I've told you that. See, this is the pectoralis minor muscle. And where is it? It is on the coracoid process. Omohyoid, adjacent to the suprascapular notch. What can we see? The omohyoid muscle. These are what I wanted to show you. What else? Yes, the posterior side. Yes, this one over here, I told you, upper lip of the crest. This is what? This is the trapezius muscle. Lower lip, this is the deltoid. And you can see they are continuous. They are continuous with the acromion process. See over here, levator scapulae, rhomboid minor muscle, rhomboideus major muscle, latissimus dorsi. These are the minor and the major, teres minor, teres major. See, from the infraglenoid tubercle, we have the triceps brachii muscle, right? These are what I wanted to show you. Now you can see in this X-ray, we can see, what can we see? This is the clavicle. This over here is the coracoid process. This is the glenoid fossa, as you can see. The acromion, head of the humerus, and the tubercles, which I have not taught you now. So just see these parts that I have shown you. So that was it for today's lecture.